A horse found a baby abandoned in a trash can in the middle of the street. What it did next touched everyone in the city. The rain poured relentlessly over the bustling metropolis of New York City, transforming its usually vibrant streets into a somber grey landscape. As night fell, the city that never sleeps seemed uncharacteristically subdued, with only a few brave souls venturing out into the downpour. Among the deserted alleys and rain-slicked roads, an unusual sight emerged. A majestic white horse, its coat glistening with raindrops, wandering aimlessly through the urban maze. The horse, a striking Arabian stallion named Frost, had escaped from an overturned transport truck on the outskirts of the city. Confused and disoriented, he found himself in an unfamiliar world of towering skyscrapers and blinking neon lights. His powerful legs carried him through the labyrinth of streets, guided by an inexplicable instinct that seemed to pull him deeper into the heart of the city. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Let us know which city you're watching us from. Stay tuned. As Frost's hooves splashed through puddles and left muddy imprints on the pavement, he attracted curious glances from the few passers-by huddled under their umbrellas. Some reached for their phones, ready to call animal control, but the horse moved swiftly, disappearing into the shadows before anyone could intervene. The night wore on, and Frost's wanderings led him into a narrow, poorly lit alley in one of the city's less affluent neighborhoods. The buildings loomed on either side, their facades worn and neglected. Trash cans overflowed with garbage, and the acrid smell of decay hung in the air. It was here, in this unlikely setting, that Frost's journey took an unexpected turn. A faint sound caught his attention, a muffled cry that was barely audible above the steady drumming of rain. Frost's ears pricked forward, his head turning as he tried to locate the source of the noise. Cautiously, he approached a large, rusty dumpster pushed against the alley wall. The cry grew slightly louder, and Frost's nostrils flared as he detected an unfamiliar scent. With gentle curiosity, Frost extended his neck, peering over the edge of the dumpster. What he saw made him recoil in surprise. A tiny human infant wrapped in dirty, tattered clothes lay among the bags of trash. The baby's face was scrunched up in distress, its cries weak and pitiful. For a moment, Frost stood still, processing the unexpected sight before him. Then, driven by an instinct he couldn't explain, he lowered his head and softly nuzzled the infant. The touch of his velvety muzzle seemed to calm the child, and for a brief instant their eyes met. The horse's large, gentle brown eyes gazing into the infant's tear-filled blue ones. In that moment, an inexplicable bond formed between the unlikely pair. Frost, sensing the baby's vulnerability and need for protection, made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He positioned himself beside the dumpster, using his body to shield the infant from the cold rain and biting wind. As the night wore on, Frost remained steadfast in his vigil. His white coat became matted and dirty, but he didn't move, determined to protect the helpless child he had found. The horse's presence seemed to comfort the infant, whose cries gradually subsided into soft whimpers. Hours passed, and the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky. The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind a misty, ethereal atmosphere. The city was beginning to stir, with early risers heading to work and delivery trucks rumbling down the streets. It was in these early morning hours that Maria Rodriguez, a middle-aged woman who made her living collecting recyclables, entered the alley pushing her cart. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she saw the magnificent white horse standing motionless beside the dumpster. "Dios mío," she whispered, crossing herself. "What are you doing here, beautiful one?" Cautiously, Maria approached the horse, who regarded her calmly but didn't move from his position. As she drew closer, she heard a sound that made her heart skip a beat, the unmistakable whimper of a baby. With trembling hands, Maria peered into the dumpster. Her gasp of shock echoed through the alley as she saw the infant, still alive but clearly in distress. Without hesitation, she reached in and gently lifted the baby, cradling it close to her chest. "Who could do such a thing?" she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. She looked at Frost, who was watching her intently. "Did you stay here to protect this little one?" Maria's mind raced as she considered what to do. Her old flip phone had stopped working days ago, and she had no way to call for help. The nearest hospital was too far to walk, but she knew of a small community clinic in the neighborhood that might be able to help. As she turned to leave, Maria was surprised to find that Frost was following her. She hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. "Well, come on then," she said to the horse. "You've guarded this baby all night. I suppose you've earned the right to see this through." And so, an extraordinary procession made its way through the awakening city, a woman carrying a rescued infant, followed closely by a majestic white horse. Passers-by stopped and stared, some taking out their phones to capture the unbelievable sight. As they walked, Maria talked softly to both the baby and the horse. "Don't you worry, little one," she cooed to the infant. "We're going to get you some help." To Frost she said, "And you, my big friend, you're a hero. Un Angel Guardian." The unlikely trio continued their journey through the streets of New York, unaware that their story was about to capture the hearts of the entire city and beyond. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the urban landscape, it seemed to herald the beginning of an extraordinary tale, one of hope, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between the most unexpected of creatures. Little did Maria know that this fateful morning was just the beginning of a series of events that would not only change her life, but also touch the lives of countless others in ways she could never have imagined. As they approached the clinic, the first chapter of their incredible journey was drawing to a close, but the story of the horse, the baby, and the kind-hearted woman was far from over. The early morning sun was just beginning to warm the streets of New York when Maria Rodriguez, cradling the abandoned infant in her arms, arrived at the doors of the Harmony Community Clinic. The small medical facility, nestled between a bodega and a laundromat, was a beacon of hope for the neighborhood's underserved residents. As Maria approached, she could see movement inside, the staff preparing for another day of providing care to those who needed it most. What the clinic staff didn't expect, however, was the sight that greeted them when they opened the doors. A disheveled woman holding a baby, with a majestic white horse standing protectively behind her. Dr. Sarah Chen, the clinic's lead physician, was the first to react. "What on earth?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Maria, out of breath from the journey, quickly explained the situation. "Please, Doctora, this baby needs help. I found him in a dumpster and this horse was protecting him." Dr. Chen's medical training kicked in, overriding her shock at the unusual scenario. "Bring the baby inside immediately," she instructed, ushering Maria through the doors. She turned to one of the nurses. "Jake, call animal control for the horse. Make sure they treat him gently. He seems to have saved this child's life." As they entered the examination room, Dr. Chen carefully took the infant from Maria's arms. The baby, a boy who looked to be only a few months old, was alarmingly quiet and cool to the touch. "He's hypothermic," Dr. Chen announced, her voice tight with concern. "We need to warm him up slowly. Jake, get me some warm blankets and prepare a glucose IV." While the medical team worked feverishly to stabilize the baby, Maria found herself pacing in the small waiting area. Through the clinic's front windows, she could see Frost, the white horse, standing calmly on the sidewalk, his eyes fixed on the clinic doors. Despite the growing crowd of onlookers and the arrival of animal control officers, the horse remained steadfast, as if he knew his job wasn't finished. Inside the clinic was a flurry of activity. Dr. Chen and her team worked tirelessly, their faces etched with determination. The baby's condition was critical. He was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and fighting a respiratory infection. But with each passing hour, there were small signs of improvement. His color began to return, his breathing became more regular, and finally, he let out a strong, healthy cry. The sound of the baby's wail echoed through the clinic, bringing tears of relief to Maria's eyes. Dr. Chen emerged from the examination room, a tired smile on her face. "He's going to make it," she announced. "It's nothing short of a miracle, considering what he's been through." As the news spread, a crowd began to gather outside the clinic. Word of the abandoned baby and the heroic horse had traveled fast, capturing the imagination of the neighborhood and beyond. Local news vans pulled up, reporters eager to cover the extraordinary story. Among the gathering crowd was Michael Torres, a passionate young journalist from the New York Daily News. He pushed his way to the front, his eyes gleaming with the excitement of a potential headline story. "Excuse me," he called out to Maria, who was standing uncertainly by the clinic doors. "Can you tell me what happened? How did you find the baby?" Maria hesitated, overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Dr. Chen stepped in, placing a protective hand on Maria's shoulder. My patient needs rest and so does Ms. Rodriguez. We'll be happy to answer questions later. As the morning wore on, the story of the abandoned baby and his equine guardian began to spread like wildfire across social media. Miracle Baby and Hero Horse began trending, with people from all over the city and beyond expressing their amazement and support. Inside the clinic, as the baby rested under careful observation, Maria found herself in deep conversation with Dr. Chen and Michael, the journalist who had managed to charm his way inside for an exclusive interview. "We need to find out where this baby came from," Dr. Chen said, her voice filled with concern. "Someone out there might be looking for him." Michael nodded, his reporter's instincts kicking in. "I can help with that. My contacts at the police department owe me a favor. We can start an investigation, try to trace the baby's origins." As they discussed their next steps, a commotion outside drew their attention. The animal control officers were attempting to lead Frost away, but the horse was refusing to budge. He neighed loudly, his eyes still fixed on the clinic doors. Maria rushed outside, followed closely by Dr. Chen and Michael. "Wait!" she called out to the officers. "Please don't take him away. He saved that baby's life. He deserves to stay until we figure this out." The officers exchanged uncertain glances, clearly out of their depth with this unusual situation. It was Michael who came up with a solution. "I know someone who owns a small farm just outside the city," he offered. "Maybe we can arrange for the horse to stay there temporarily. It's not far and he'd be well cared for." As they debated what to do, a police car pulled up to the clinic. Detective Lisa Morales stepped out, her sharp eyes taking in the scene, the crowd, the news vans, the majestic white horse, and the unlikely group gathered around it. "I heard we have quite a situation here," Detective Morales said, approaching the group. "Her baby abandoned in a dumpster, rescued by a horse. Sounds like something out of a fairy tale." Dr. Chen quickly filled the detective in on the morning's events. Detective Morales listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each detail. "This is a delicate situation," she said finally. "We need to handle this carefully. The media attention could help us find the baby's family, but it could also alert whoever abandoned him." As they discussed their next moves, none of them could have anticipated the web of secrets and surprises that they were about to unravel. The abandoned baby and his equine savior had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge their perceptions, test their resolve, and ultimately bring to light a story more extraordinary than any of them could have imagined. With the baby stable but still in need of care, Frost temporarily housed at a nearby farm, and a team of unlikely allies formed, the stage was set for a journey that would take them through the heights and depths of human experience. As the sun reached its zenith over the city, casting long shadows across the streets, the characters in this unfolding drama prepared themselves for what was to come, unaware of the twists and turns that lay ahead. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across New York City, the Harmony Community Clinic had become the epicenter of a story that was captivating the entire metropolis. Inside, Dr. Sarah Chen, Maria Rodriguez, Detective Lisa Morales, and journalist Michael Torres gathered in a small conference room, their faces etched with determination as they began to piece together the mystery of the abandoned baby. Detective Morales spread out a series of documents on the table. "Here's what we know so far," she began, her voice steady and professional. "The baby is approximately 3 months old, male, and despite his ordeal is in relatively good health, thanks to Dr. Chen's team." Dr. Chen nodded, adding, "He's responding well to treatment, but I'm concerned about the long-term effects of his exposure and malnourishment. We need to find out more about his background, his medical history." Michael, his reporter's notebook in hand, leaned forward. "I've been digging into recent missing persons reports, focusing on young mothers or infants. Nothing matches our case so far." Maria, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What about the clothes he was wearing? Or anything else found with him?" Detective Morales pulled out an evidence bag containing the tattered clothes the baby had been wrapped in. Standard baby clothes, no tags or identifying marks. "But," she paused, reaching for another bag, "we did find this." She carefully extracted a small crumpled piece of paper. On it was a partially smudged phone number, and what appeared to be a name, though only a few letters were legible. "S-R-M-L," Michael read aloud, squinting at the faded writing. "And the phone number. Looks like we're missing the last 2 digits." It's not much, Detective Morales admitted, but it's a start. We'll run the partial number through our database, see if we can get any matches. As the group pored over the scant evidence, there was a knock at the door. Jake, the clinic nurse, poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here you might want to talk to. Says she has information about the baby. The room fell silent as Jake ushered in a nervous-looking young woman. She was in her early 20s with dark circles under her eyes and clothes that had seen better days. I'm Emily, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think I might know something about the baby's mother. Detective Morales quickly offered Emily a seat, her voice gentle but urgent. Tell us what you know, Emily. Any information could help us. Emily took a deep breath, wringing her hands. There's this girl, Sarah Mitchell. We both work at the Golden Pony. Michael's eyebrows shot up in recognition. The Gentlemen's Club downtown? Emily nodded, avoiding eye contact. Sarah was pregnant. She was so excited about the baby, even though things were tough. But then about 3 months ago, everything changed. She started dating this guy, Rick. He seemed nice at first, but she trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. Dr. Chen placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. It's okay. Take your time. Rick, he changed her. Sarah stopped coming to work. When I did see her, she looked scared. Then about a week ago, she called me in the middle of the night. She was crying, saying something about how she'd made a terrible mistake, that she didn't deserve her baby. Detective Morales leaned forward, her voice urgent. Emily, do you know where Sarah is now? Or this Rick? Emily shook her head. I haven't seen her since that call. And Rick, I only met him once. He gave me the creeps. As Emily continued to share what she knew, the pieces of the puzzle began to shift into place. Sarah Mitchell, a young mother struggling to make ends meet. Rick, a mysterious boyfriend with a dark influence. A baby, once cherished, now abandoned. Michael, his journalistic instincts on high alert, couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than met the eye. Detective, he said, turning to Morales, what if the abandonment wasn't Sarah's idea? What if she's in trouble too? The implications of Michael's words hung heavy in the room. If Sarah was indeed in danger, the stakes of their investigation had just been raised significantly. As the group discussed their next moves, Maria found her thoughts drifting to Frost, the white horse who had started this whole extraordinary chain of events. She couldn't help but feel that the horse's role in this drama was far from over. We need to find Sarah, Detective Morales declared, standing up. Emily, I'll need you to come down to the station to make an official statement. Dr. Chen, please keep me updated on the baby's condition. Michael, your media connections might be useful in getting Sarah's description out there. As the meeting disbanded, each person left with a sense of purpose and urgency. But even as they dove deeper into the mystery, none of them could have anticipated the web of deceit, hope, and unexpected alliances that they were about to uncover. Outside the clinic, the city hummed with the buzz of the unfolding story. News vans remained parked along the street, their reporters eager for any updates. Social media was alight with theories and expressions of support for the miracle baby and his equine guardian. At the small farm just outside the city, Frost stood in a comfortable stall, his white coat gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Though surrounded by the peaceful sounds of farm life, his gaze remained fixed in the direction of the city, as if he could sense the unfolding drama and his part in it was not yet done. As night fell over New York, the disparate threads of this extraordinary tale began to intertwine. A desperate mother, a mysterious boyfriend, an abandoned baby, a heroic horse, and a group of unlikely allies all played their parts in a story that was capturing the imagination of a city known for its indifference. In the coming days, their paths would cross in ways none of them could have foreseen. The search for Sarah Mitchell was just beginning, and with it, the unraveling of a mystery that would test the limits of compassion, challenge the bonds of trust, and ultimately reveal the extraordinary capacity of the human heart to overcome adversity. As the city settled into an uneasy sleep, the stage was set for the next act in this unfolding drama. The miracle baby slept peacefully in the clinic, unaware of the ripples his existence had created, and somewhere in the vast urban sprawl, Sarah Mitchell's fate hung in the balance, waiting to be discovered. The neon lights of the Golden Pony Gentlemen's Club flickered to life as dusk settled over New York City. Inside, the air was thick with perfume and anticipation, but for Detective Lisa Morales and Michael Torres, the atmosphere was charged with a different kind of tension. They had come in search of answers, hoping to uncover more about Sarah Mitchell and her mysterious boyfriend Rick. As they made their way through the dimly lit interior, Michael couldn't help but feel out of place. "I never thought I'd be investigating a story in a place like this," he muttered to Morales. The detective's face remained impassive. "Sometimes the truth hides in the most unexpected places," she replied, her eyes scanning the room. At the bar, they found Tanya, the club's manager, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. After showing their credentials, Morales got straight to the point. "We're looking for information about Sarah Mitchell. We understand she used to work here." Tanya's expression tightened. "Sarah? Yeah, she worked here. Sweet girl, good worker. But she hasn't been in for weeks. Is she in some kind of trouble?" As Morales carefully explained the situation, leaving out the details about the abandoned baby, Michael's attention was drawn to a photograph on the wall behind the bar. It showed the club's staff at what appeared to be a Christmas party. His eyes widened as he spotted a familiar face. "Detective," he interrupted, pointing at the photo. "That's Sarah, isn't it?" Morales leaned in for a closer look. In the picture, Sarah was smiling broadly, her arm around another woman they recognized as Emily. But it was the man standing behind Sarah that caught their attention. Tall, with piercing eyes and a charming smile, he had his hand possessively on Sarah's shoulder. "That's Rick," Tanya confirmed, following their gaze. "Sarah's boyfriend. He started coming around a few months ago. Always had this way about him, like he owned the place." Morales pulled out her phone, snapping a quick picture of the man in the photo. "We're going to need to know everything you can tell us about Rick. Full name, where he works, any information you have." As Tanya shared what she knew, which wasn't much, Michael's reporter instincts were on high alert. There was something about Rick that didn't sit right with him. The way he held himself in the photo, the possessive grip on Sarah's shoulder, it all pointed to a man used to being in control. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Candy, one of the club's dancers who had overheard them talking about Sarah. "I couldn't help but overhear," she said, her voice tinged with concern. "Sarah's my friend. She seemed so happy when she found out she was pregnant, but after she met Rick, everything changed." Morales turned her full attention to Candy. "Changed how?" Candy hesitated, glancing nervously around the club. "Rick, he wasn't what he seemed at first. Sarah started missing shifts, and when she did come in, she was different. Jumpy, scared. One night I saw bruises on her arms. When I asked her about it, she just started crying." The implications of Candy's words hung heavy in the air. Michael felt a chill run down his spine as he began to piece together a disturbing picture of Sarah's situation. Morales pressed on, her voice gentle but insistent. "Candy, did Sarah ever mention where she and Rick lived? Or any places they liked to go?" Candy's brow furrowed in concentration. "She did mention something once about a cabin. Rick had a cabin upstate, I think. She said it was their special place." As they left the Golden Pony, armed with new information and growing concern, Morales and Michael knew they were racing against time. If Sarah was indeed in danger, every moment counted. Back at the Harmony Community Clinic, Dr. Chen was finishing up her rounds when she noticed something unusual about the abandoned baby. As she checked his vital signs, her eyes were drawn to a small birthmark on the infant's shoulder, a distinctive shape that looked almost like a horseshoe. Across town at the small farm where Frost was being kept, Maria Rodriguez sat on a bale of hay, lost in thought. She had felt compelled to visit the horse, drawn by a connection she couldn't quite explain. As she watched Frost grazing peacefully in the paddock, she was struck by a strange feeling, as if the horse was meant to be a part of this unfolding story. Her reverie was interrupted by the ringing of her cell phone. It was Michael, his voice urgent. "Maria, we've got a lead. We think we know where Sarah might be. We're heading upstate first thing in the morning." As night settled over the city, the various threads of the mystery began to converge. In the clinic, a baby slept peacefully, unaware of the distinctive mark that might hold the key to his identity. At the farm, a white horse stood vigil, his role in the drama far from over. And somewhere upstate, in a secluded cabin, the answers to their questions, and perhaps Sarah herself, waited to be found. The stage was set for a journey that would take them beyond the city limits, into a world where secrets lay hidden in the shadows of the Catskill Mountains. As Morales, Michael, and Maria prepared for what lay ahead, none of them could have anticipated the revelations and challenges that awaited them. With each passing hour, the stakes grew higher. The search for Sarah Mitchell had become more than just a missing person case. It was a race to uncover the truth, to right a wrong, and perhaps to save a life. As the city slept, the unlikely team of a detective, a journalist, a doctor, and a compassionate stranger steeled themselves for the next chapter in their extraordinary quest. The journey to the heart of the mystery was about to begin, and with it, the promise of answers that would shake the foundations of everything they thought they knew. The early morning mist clung to the winding roads of the Catskill Mountains as Detective Lisa Morales' SUV made its way upstate. Inside, an unusual group of passengers sat in tense silence. Michael Torres, the determined journalist, Maria Rodriguez, the kind-hearted woman who had found the baby, and Dr. Sarah Chen, who had insisted on coming along in case they found Sarah or the baby needed medical attention. As they drove deeper into the mountains, the sprawling urban landscape of New York City gave way to dense forests and scattered small towns. The change in scenery seemed to underscore the gravity of their mission. They were venturing into unknown territory, both literally and figuratively. According to my contact in the Catskills Sheriff's Department, Morales broke the silence, there's a cluster of rental cabins about 20 miles ahead. One of them was leased to a Richard Blackwood 3 months ago. Michael's eyebrows shot up. Richard Blackwood? That must be our Rick. Dr. Chen leaned forward from the back seat. What's our plan when we get there? We can't just barge in without proof. Morales nodded, her eyes never leaving the road. We'll do a drive-by first, see if we can spot any signs of activity. If we do, I'll call for backup before we approach. As they continued their journey, Maria found her thoughts drifting to Frost, the white horse they had left behind. She couldn't shake the feeling that the animal was somehow connected to all of this. I hope Frost is okay, she murmured, almost to herself. Michael turned to her, a reassuring smile on his face. I'm sure he's fine. The farm owner promised to take good care of him. Besides, that horse seems to have a knack for being exactly where he needs to be. As they approached the turn-off for the cabin area, the atmosphere in the car grew tense. Morales slowed the vehicle, her trained eyes scanning the surroundings. They passed several empty cabins before coming to one that showed signs of life. A car parked outside, smoke rising from the chimney. That's got to be it, Michael whispered, his reporter's instincts on high alert. Morales pulled over at a discreet distance and reached for her phone to call for backup. But before she could dial, a scream pierced the air, coming from the direction of the cabin. Without hesitation, Morales threw open her door. Stay here, she ordered the others, drawing her weapon and moving swiftly towards the cabin. But Michael, driven by a mixture of journalistic instinct and genuine concern, couldn't bring himself to stay put. He scrambled out of the car after Morales, ignoring Dr. Chen's protests. As they approached the cabin, the front door burst open. A woman who they instantly recognized as Sarah Mitchell from the photo stumbled out, her face tear-streaked and panicked. Behind her, a man, undoubtedly Rick, appeared in the doorway, his face contorted with anger. NYPD, freeze! Morales shouted, her gun trained on Rick. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Rick, realizing he was cornered, grabbed Sarah and pulled her back inside. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the woods as he smashed through a back window, dragging Sarah with him. Morales sprinted around the side of the cabin, with Michael close behind. They emerged into a clearing just in time to see Rick forcing Sarah into the car they had spotted earlier. Stop! Police! Morales yelled again. But her words were drowned out by the roar of the car's engine as Rick peeled away, tires spitting gravel. In a split-second decision, Michael ran to Morales' SUV. We can't lose them, he shouted to Dr. Chen and Maria, who were watching in shock. Get in! As Morales returned to the SUV, frustration evident on her face, Michael was already behind the wheel. I'll drive, he said. You focus on calling for backup and coordinating a roadblock. With Morales' reluctant nod, they set off in pursuit, the SUV's tires screeching as they hit the mountain road. What followed was a harrowing chase through the winding roads of the Catskills. Rick's car swerved dangerously around curves, with Michael doing his best to keep up while ensuring everyone's safety. In the back seat, Dr. Chen held onto Maria, both of them silent with fear and anticipation. As they rounded a particularly sharp bend, they saw Rick's car skid off the road ahead, coming to a stop at the edge of a steep drop. Michael brought the SUV to a halt, and everyone held their breath as they watched Rick drag Sarah from the car. Morales was out of the SUV in an instant, her gun drawn. "Hey, it's over, Rick, let her go." Rick, his face a mask of desperation, held Sarah close, using her as a shield. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Sarah's eyes were wide with fear, but as she looked past Morales to the group emerging from the SUV, something changed in her expression. "My baby," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Where's my baby?" The tension in the air was palpable as the standoff continued. Rick, cornered and unpredictable, Sarah, torn between fear and hope, and the unlikely group of rescuers, each playing a vital role in this unfolding drama. As sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the approach of backup, the situation balanced on a knife's edge. The next few moments would be crucial, determining not just the fate of Sarah and her child, but the resolution of a mystery that had brought together the most unlikely of allies. In that charged moment, with the Catskill Mountains as a dramatic backdrop, the true test of their resolve and the depth of the connections they had formed was about to begin. The standoff on the edge of the cliff seemed to stretch into eternity. Detective Morales stood firm, her gun trained on Rick, while Sarah trembled in his grasp. Behind them, Michael, Dr. Chen and Maria watched with bated breath, each feeling the weight of the moment. "Rick," Morales called out, her voice steady despite the tension, "you need to think about what you're doing. This doesn't have to end badly." Rick's eyes darted frantically between Morales and the steep drop behind him. "You don't understand," he shouted, his voice cracking. "None of you understand." It was Sarah who broke the stalemate. With a sudden burst of strength, she turned in Rick's grasp to face him. "Rick, please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "What happened to us? This isn't you. Think about our baby." At the mention of the baby, Rick's grip loosened slightly. Confusion and pain flashed across his face. I was trying to protect you both," he stammered. Seeing an opening, Dr. Chen stepped forward cautiously, her hands raised to show she was unarmed. "Sarah," she called out gently, "your baby is safe. He's being cared for at our clinic." Sarah's eyes widened, hope and relief washing over her features. "He's alive? He's okay?" As Sarah's attention turned to Dr. Chen, Rick's demeanor changed. The fight seemed to drain out of him, replaced by a look of defeat and shame. Morales seized the moment, moving swiftly to separate Rick from Sarah and secure him. With Rick subdued, Sarah collapsed to the ground, overcome with emotion. Maria rushed to her side, wrapping her in a comforting embrace. "It's okay, querida," she soothed. "You're safe now. Your baby is safe." As the wail of approaching sirens grew louder, the group began to piece together the story. Sarah, cradled in Maria's arms, started to speak, her voice shaky but determined. "I was so scared," she began. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was alone and struggling. Then I met Rick. He seemed so kind, so protective. He promised to take care of us." Rick, now seated on the ground with his hands cuffed behind his back, hung his head. "I wanted to do the right thing," he murmured, "but I lost my job, and the debts kept piling up. I thought if we gave up the baby, we could start over." Sarah's voice grew stronger as she continued. "But I couldn't do it. I couldn't give up my baby. The night I called Emily, I had decided to leave, to find help. But Rick found out, and he—" Her voice trailed off, the memory too painful to vocalize. Michael, his reporter's instincts tempered by compassion, asked gently, "What happened to the baby, Sarah? How did he end up in that alley?" Sarah shook her head, tears flowing freely. "I don't know. After Rick took me to the cabin, everything's a blur. I was so afraid for my baby. I thought I'd lost him forever." As local law enforcement arrived on the scene, Morales took charge, coordinating with them to secure Rick and ensure Sarah received immediate medical attention. Dr. Chen stayed close to Sarah, monitoring her condition and offering reassurance about her baby's well-being. While the official procedures were underway, Michael pulled Maria aside. "There's still something missing," he mused. "How did the baby end up in that specific alley? And what about Frost? It can't all be coincidence." Maria nodded, her eyes distant. I've been thinking the same thing. It's like there's a thread connecting all of this that we can't quite see. As if in response to their pondering, Maria's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jake, the nurse at Harmony Clinic. The message contained a photo of the baby's distinctive birthmark, the one that looked like a horseshoe. Michael's eyes widened as he saw the image. "Wait a minute," he exclaimed, an idea forming. "Sarah, can you come here for a second?" When Sarah joined them, Michael showed her the photo. "Does this birthmark look familiar to you?" Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Yes, that's my baby's birthmark, but how did you—" "There's more," Michael continued, excitement building in his voice. "The horse that found your baby, Frost. He has a similar mark on his flank. I noticed it at the farm but didn't think much of it at the time." A look of recognition dawned on Sarah's face. "Frost? White horse?" she asked, her voice trembling. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about a white horse with a horseshoe mark. She said it was a guardian spirit of our family, appearing in times of need." The group fell silent, the implications of this revelation sinking in. It seemed that the threads of their extraordinary tale were finally coming together, weaving a tapestry of coincidence, fate, and perhaps something more. As the sun began to set over the Catskill Mountains, casting long shadows across the scene of their dramatic confrontation, the group prepared to return to the city. Sarah, now under the protective watch of Dr. Chen and Detective Morales, was eager to be reunited with her baby. Rick, facing the consequences of his actions, was in custody but showed genuine remorse. Michael and Maria, their roles in this adventure far exceeding anything they could have imagined, shared a look of wonder and determination. They knew that their journey was far from over. There were still questions to be answered, connections to be understood. As they all piled into vehicles for the trip back to New York City, there was a sense of a chapter closing, but also of a new one beginning. The mystery of the abandoned baby and the heroic horse had evolved into something far more complex and profound. Little did they know that back in the city, at the small farm where Frost was being kept, the white horse was growing restless. As if sensing the resolution of one part of his mission and the beginning of another, Frost paced in his paddock, his eyes fixed on the horizon, waiting for the return of those he had brought together in this extraordinary tale of hope, redemption, and unexpected connections. The journey back to New York City was filled with a mix of emotions, relief, anticipation, and a lingering sense of wonder at the events that had unfolded. As the city skyline came into view, each member of the unlikely group found themselves lost in thought, pondering the roles they had played in this extraordinary tale. Sarah, nestled in the back seat of Detective Morales' SUV, clutched a photo of her baby that Dr. Chen had shown her. Her eyes, though tired, sparkled with hope and longing. "I can't believe I'm finally going to hold him again," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Dr. Chen, sitting beside her, offered a reassuring smile. "He's a fighter, just like his mother. And he's had quite the guardian angel watching over him." In the front seat, Detective Morales couldn't help but shake her head in amazement. "In all my years on the force, I've never seen anything quite like this," she mused. "A horse leading us to an abandoned baby, family legends coming to life. It's like something out of a storybook." As they neared the city, Morales' radio crackled to life. It was the precinct, informing her that they had made progress in tracing the baby's journey from the cabin to the alley where he was found. "Detective," the voice on the radio said, "we've got security camera footage you're going to want to see." Meanwhile, in another car, Michael and Maria were deep in conversation, trying to piece together the remaining parts of the puzzle. "I can't shake the feeling that there's more to Frost's story," Maria said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The way he appeared just when the baby needed him most, that birthmark, it can't all be coincidence." Michael nodded, his journalist's mind racing. "You're right. And now, with Sarah's family legend about a guardian spirit, I think we need to dig deeper into her family history. There might be clues we're missing." As they discussed theories and possibilities, Maria's phone buzzed with a message. It was from the farm where Frost was being kept. The message was brief but urgent. "Horse acting strange. Trying to break out of paddock. Please advise." Maria and Michael exchanged worried glances. "We need to get to the farm," Maria said, her voice filled with concern. "Something's happening with Frost." By the time they reached the city, the group had a plan. Sarah and Dr. Chen would go directly to the Harmony Clinic for the long-awaited reunion with the baby. Detective Morales would head to the precinct to review the new evidence. Michael and Maria would check on Frost at the farm. At the clinic, emotions ran high as Sarah was finally reunited with her baby boy. As she held him close, tears streaming down her face, she noticed the horseshoe-shaped birthmark on his shoulder. "My little miracle," she whispered, gently tracing the mark with her finger. Dr. Chen, watching the touching scene, couldn't help but feel that they were witnessing something truly special. The bond between mother and child seemed to radiate a warmth that filled the room. Across town at the precinct, Detective Morales sat in stunned silence as she reviewed the security footage. The video showed a figure leaving the baby in the alley, but it wasn't Rick or Sarah. Instead, it was an elderly woman, her movements careful and deliberate. As she set the baby down, she looked directly at the camera, her eyes seeming to hold a message for those who would find the child. "Run a facial recognition on her," Morales ordered, her instincts telling her this was a crucial piece of the puzzle. At the farm, Michael and Maria arrived to find Frost in a state of agitation. The majestic white horse paced restlessly, his eyes fixed on the horizon. As they approached, Frost suddenly stilled, turning to look at them with an almost human-like intelligence. "It's like he knows something we don't," Maria murmured, reaching out to stroke Frost's mane. As her hand touched the horse, a jolt of energy seemed to pass between them. In that moment, Maria was overwhelmed by a series of vivid images, flashes of Sarah's grandmother, the baby being placed in the alley, and Frost galloping through city streets. It was as if the horse was sharing memories, piecing together the parts of the story they had yet to uncover. Gasping, Maria stumbled back, steadied by Michael's supportive hand. "We need to get back to the clinic," she said urgently. "I think I know what's been missing." As night fell over New York City, the various threads of this incredible story began to converge. At the clinic, Sarah cradled her baby, feeling a connection that transcended the time they had been apart. At the precinct, Detective Morales uncovered the identity of the mysterious elderly woman, Sarah's long-lost grandmother, believed to have passed away years ago. And racing through the city streets, Michael and Maria, with Frost somehow sensing their destination and following alongside their car, headed towards a reunion that promised to unravel the final mysteries of their extraordinary journey. The stage was set for revelations that would challenge their understanding of fate, family, and the unseen forces that sometimes intervene in human lives. As the city pulsed with the energy of countless stories unfolding, this small group of individuals, brought together by circumstance and perhaps something more, prepared to face the final chapter of their shared adventure. Little did they know that the most astonishing revelations were yet to come, waiting to be unveiled in the quiet halls of the Harmony Clinic, where a baby's cry had first set this incredible chain of events in motion. The Harmony Clinic, once a quiet haven of healing, now buzzed with an energy that seemed to transcend the ordinary. As night deepened over New York City, the clinic became the focal point of a story that had captivated the hearts and minds of all involved. Sarah sat in a comfortable chair, her baby boy nestled securely in her arms. Dr. Chen stood nearby, monitoring both mother and child with a mixture of professional concern and personal investment. The room was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation, as if the very air was holding its breath, waiting for the final pieces of the puzzle to fall into place. The door burst open as Detective Morales strode in, her face a mask of barely contained excitement. "Sarah," she said, her voice gentle despite her urgency, "there's someone you need to see." Following close behind the detective was an elderly woman, her silver hair neatly pinned back, her eyes twinkling with a wisdom that seemed to span generations. As she entered the room, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. The old woman's face crinkled into a warm smile. "Oh, my dear Sarah," she said, her voice rich with emotion. "I've waited so long for this moment." As grandmother and granddaughter embraced, the baby between them, Dr. Chen and Detective Morales, exchanged amazed glances. The reunion was interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps in the hallway. Michael and Maria rushed into the room slightly out of breath. "You won't believe what just happened," Maria began, but she stopped short at the sight before her. "I think we're all in for some surprises," Michael said, taking in the scene. Outside, the distinctive sound of hooves on pavement echoed through the night. Frost, having followed Michael and Maria's car through the city streets, now stood proudly in front of the clinic, as if standing guard. Sarah's grandmother, seeing the confusion on everyone's faces, took a deep breath. "I think it's time I explained everything," she said, her voice steady and clear. Over the next hour, as the group sat in rapt attention, Sarah's grandmother, Esmeralda, unraveled a tale that stretched back generations. She spoke of a family legacy, of guardians who appeared in times of great need, and of a bond between humans and nature that defied conventional understanding. "Our family has always had a special connection to the spirit world," Esmeralda explained. "For generations, we've been visited by guardian spirits in times of crisis. They often take the form of animals, in our case, a white horse." She went on to describe how she had sensed the danger surrounding Sarah and the baby. "I knew I had to intervene," she said, her eyes misting with unshed tears. "I couldn't let harm come to my great-grandson." Esmeralda revealed that she had followed Sarah and Rick to New York, watching from the shadows. When she saw an opportunity to save the baby, she took it, placing him where she knew he would be found, guided by the spirit of the white horse. "But why didn't you come to me directly?" Sarah asked, her voice a mixture of hurt and wonder. Esmeralda's face softened. "My dear, there are some journeys we must make on our own. You needed to find your strength, to break free from the situation you were in. And," she added with a gentle smile, "you needed to meet these wonderful people who would become your support system." As if on cue, Frost's neigh echoed from outside, causing everyone to start. Maria, feeling a sudden urge, walked to the window. "I think he wants to see the baby," she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. In a moment that seemed to defy logic, the group found themselves outside the clinic. Frost stood before them, his white coat gleaming under the streetlights. As Sarah approached with the baby, the horse lowered his head gently. The baby, as if sensing something beyond human understanding, reached out a tiny hand. As his fingers brushed Frost's muzzle, the birthmark on his shoulder seemed to glow faintly. Esmeralda's voice was barely above a whisper. "The circle is complete. The Guardian has fulfilled his purpose." Detective Morales, ever the pragmatist, found herself speechless. Dr. Chen, trained in science and medicine, couldn't deny the magic of what she was witnessing. Michael, the skeptical journalist, felt a story unfolding that transcended anything he had ever written. And Maria, the compassionate soul who had started this journey by simply wanting to help, felt a deep sense of connection to everyone and everything around her. As the group stood there, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights and something more ethereal, they realized that their lives had been inexorably changed. The mystery that had brought them together had evolved into something far greater, a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of family bonds, and the magic that can occur when open hearts come together. Frost, his mission seemingly complete, began to back away. But as he turned to leave, a collective realization dawned on the group. This wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. The connections they had forged, the truths they had uncovered, and the magic they had witnessed were now a part of them. As the first light of dawn began to paint the sky, promising a new day filled with possibilities, the unlikely group of friends, a mother, a baby, a grandmother, a detective, a doctor, a journalist, and a compassionate stranger, stood united. They had been brought together by extraordinary circumstances, but it was their shared humanity and open hearts that had truly woven their destinies together. The story of the abandoned baby and the heroic horse had come full circle, but the impact of their journey was far from over. As they stood there, each lost in thought yet profoundly connected, they knew that the true adventure of living, loving, and embracing the magic in everyday life was just beginning. As the sun rose over New York City, bathing the streets in a warm, golden glow, the group that had been brought together by an extraordinary series of events found themselves at a crossroads. The mystery had been solved, the family reunited, and the guardian spirit's purpose fulfilled. Yet, there was a sense that their journey was far from over. In the days that followed, each member of this unlikely alliance found their lives profoundly changed by the experience they had shared. Sarah and her baby boy, whom she named Ethan, meaning strong and enduring, moved in with Esmeralda. The small apartment above a quaint bookstore in Brooklyn became a haven of love and healing. Sarah, with her grandmother's guidance and the support of her new friends, began to rebuild her life. She enrolled in online classes, determined to create a bright future for herself and Ethan. Detective Lisa Morales, touched by the events she had witnessed, found a renewed sense of purpose in her work. She began to approach her cases with a more open mind, understanding that sometimes the truth lies beyond what can be seen or measured. Her reputation for solving seemingly impossible cases grew, as did her compassion for those she encountered in her line of duty. Dr. Sarah Chen, inspired by the intersection of science and the inexplicable she had witnessed, initiated a research project at the Harmony Clinic. Her study focused on the healing power of human connection and the potential benefits of animal-assisted therapy. The clinic soon became known not just for its medical expertise, but for its holistic approach to healing. Michael Torres, the skeptical journalist, found himself transformed by the story he had been a part of. He wrote a series of articles about the experience, careful to maintain the privacy of those involved while sharing the profound lessons he had learned. His writing took on a new depth, exploring the thin line between the ordinary and the extraordinary in everyday life. Maria Rodriguez, whose simple act of kindness had set the entire chain of events in motion, discovered a new calling. With the support of her new friends, she started a non-profit organization dedicated to connecting abandoned animals with people in need of companionship and healing. The organization, named Frost's Legacy, quickly gained support from the community. Rick, facing the consequences of his actions, entered a rehabilitation program. With Sarah's forgiveness and the unexpected support of Detective Morales, he began the long journey of redemption, determined to become a person his son could be proud of. And Frost, the majestic white horse who had been the catalyst for it all, found a new home at a sanctuary just outside the city. While he was no longer needed as a guardian spirit, he continued to touch lives. The sanctuary became a place of healing, where people could come to find peace and connection with nature. 1 year after the events that had brought them together, the group gathered at Esmeralda's bookstore to celebrate Ethan's first birthday. As they shared stories, laughter, and a cake adorned with a fondant horse, they marveled at how their lives had intertwined. Esmeralda, her eyes twinkling with wisdom, raised a toast. "To the magic of everyday life," she said, her voice filled with warmth, "and to the power of open hearts and helping hands." As the evening wound down, Sarah stepped out onto the small balcony, Ethan sleeping peacefully in her arms. The city stretched out before her, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. She thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment, the hardships, the fear, but also the incredible kindness and love she had encountered. Maria joined her on the balcony, and for a moment they stood in comfortable silence, gazing at the city. "Do you ever wonder," Sarah asked softly, "what would have happened if you hadn't found Ethan that night?" Maria smiled, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "I used to," she replied, "but now I understand that some things are meant to be. We were all meant to find each other, to learn and grow together." As if in response to her words, a gentle breeze swept over them, carrying with it the faint sound of a horse's neigh. Sarah and Maria exchanged a knowing look, their hearts filled with a sense of wonder and gratitude. Inside, the conversation and laughter continued, a testament to the bonds that had been forged through adversity and compassion. Detective Morales was regaling Dr. Chen with tales from her latest case, while Michael scribbled notes for his next article, inspired by the gathering. As the night deepened, the group said their goodbyes, each heading back to their own corners of the city. But they left knowing that they were now part of something greater than themselves, a family bound not by blood, but by shared experience and open hearts. Ethan, secure in his mother's arms, slept peacefully, the faint outline of his horseshoe birthmark visible in the soft light. It stood as a reminder of the extraordinary journey that had brought them all together, and the magic that can be found in the most unexpected places. As Sarah closed the door to her apartment, she felt a profound sense of peace and possibility. The city outside was alive with millions of stories, each one a potential tapestry of connection and wonder. And she knew that her story, their story, was just beginning. In the end, the tale of the abandoned baby and the heroic horse had become something more, a testament to the enduring power of compassion, the strength found in unlikely friendships, and the magic that exists in every act of kindness. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can be found, families can be forged, and love can transform lives in the most unexpected ways. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of the city, a white horse raised his head to the stars, his mission complete but his spirit forever intertwined with the lives he had touched. The Guardian's work was done, but the legacy of love and connection he had inspired would continue to ripple outward, touching life after life in an endless chain of compassion and wonder.